Good morning, I'm Taylor Wilson, and today is Saturday, April 26th, 2025. This is The Excerpt. Today we discuss some of the big takeaways from Trump's interview with Time magazine, plus a judge in Wisconsin has been charged with felonies in an ICE case, and more couples are living separately. President Donald Trump said he's open to bringing a wrongly deported Maryland man back to the U.S. for a court hearing, despite his administration saying Abrego Garcia will never return to the U.S. from El Salvador. He discussed that and more in a recent interview with Time magazine to mark his first 100 days in office, which he'll reach next week. I spoke with USA Today White House reporter Zach Anderson for more. And thanks for hopping on, Zach.
Happy to be here.
So let's just start by talking about Abrego Garcia, and this was clearly a part of this interview, Zach. What did he say? What's the latest from Trump on this deported Maryland man?
The Trump administration has really dug in on this issue and said that they're not bringing Abrego Garcia back. But in this Time magazine interview, Trump said he would be open to bringing him back and, quote, retrying him. Abrego Garcia was deported without a court hearing. So the Time reporter sort of pressed Trump on whether he could get a hearing. And Trump said that he would be open to that, but he also said that he hasn't talked to the president of El Salvador about bringing him back, which would seem to be the first step.
Well, Trump also had some pretty eyebrow-raising comments about sending Americans to foreign prisons in this interview. Zach, what can you tell us about those comments?
That got a lot of attention when Trump said that he would potentially send homegrown, in his words, criminals to foreign prisons. There's a huge backlash to that. Legal experts say that it's unlawful. A Republican senator went on TV and said that it was immoral. But Trump doubled down in the Time magazine interview. He said that he loves the idea and that he would like to use it for extreme cases of hardened criminals.
Well, Zach, we've heard a lot from Trump about Greenland and even Canada and the Panama Canal. And, it can be hard to cut through the noise, right, and try to figure out if he's serious about wanting to acquire these places under U.S. control. Apparently, based off this interview, he might be serious. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, he said he's serious. The reporter asked him if he was trolling on this, and he said, no, he's not trolling. In the past, some of Trump's comments, people have questioned whether you should take them literally. And Trump said, in this case, you should, that he believes that Canada should be the 51st state. He sounded very serious about that.
Wow. All right. So obviously, tariffs have been a big part of the headlines here in recent weeks. Did we learn anything new about Trump's views or plans on tariffs? I think a lot of folks are trying to still keep an eye on Trump to see if he wants to walk any of this back.
So Trump was asked if it would be a victory for him if the country still had high tariffs in a year. He said, yes, it would be a total victory. Some people have wondered, there's been a lot of speculation about how much this would be permanent and how much Trump is negotiating here. He's talking to other countries, saying that he wants to negotiate trade deals with them. But in this interview, he said that if the tariffs stay in place, that would be a win.
Russia attacked Ukraine's capital earlier this week, and Trump and Ukraine's leader Zelensky continue to have I guess I would say, tense relationship. What did he say to Time about what's next for Ukraine?
The big question right now in this peace deal is how can you get these two countries to come to something that they would both agree with? And a lot of that revolves around the territory that Russia has taken from Ukraine, both Crimea, which Russia took in 2014, and some of the provinces that Russia has occupied. And Trump was asked about Crimea, and he said that doesn't belong to Ukraine. It belongs to Russia. He also said that Ukraine cannot join NATO.
All right. And finally, he had some comments about taxes and potentially tax increases. Zach, what can you tell us here?
So as part of this budget deal, this reconciliation deal that Trump is trying to use to get his agenda through Congress, taxes are a big aspect of that, and whether or not to extend the Trump tax cuts from his first administration. And some people in MAGA, notably Steve Bannon, Trump's former chief White House political advisor, have said that you should actually raise taxes on millionaires, that would be a way to neutralize Democrats' historic advantage with the working class and position the Republican Party even more, something that Trump has already done, but even more as a working class party. And Trump was asked about that earlier this week, and he said he doesn't like the idea of raising taxes on millionaires, that they would leave the country. But when he was asked about it by Time, he gave a different reason for opposing it, and that's politics. He said he actually does like the idea and that he would be open to raising taxes, but he thinks that it's a political loser.
All right. Really interesting interview and some takeaways here from Zach. Folks can find them with a link in today's show notes. Zach Anderson covers the White House for USA Today. Thanks, Zach.
Thank you.
A Milwaukee County Circuit judge has been charged with 2 felonies for her role in helping an undocumented immigrant avoid arrest after he appeared in her local Wisconsin courtroom. Judge Hannah Dugan is accused of obstruction of a U.S. agency and concealing an individual to prevent an arrest. According to the complaint, she assisted Eduardo Flores Ruiz, a Mexican immigrant, avoid being arrested by federal immigration officials at the Milwaukee County Courthouse after he appeared in her courtroom for a pre-trial conference on April 18th. Flores Ruiz is facing 3 misdemeanor battery counts. 2 federal agents eventually chased him down outside the courthouse and apprehended him at a downtown Milwaukee intersection, according to the complaint. You can read more with a link in today's show notes. Former Congressman George Santos has been sentenced to more than 7 years in federal prison. He was also ordered to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars in restitution, according to U.S. Attorney John Durham. Attorneys for Santos had pushed for the 2-year minimum sentence set in law, citing his guilty plea last year to felony wire fraud and aggravated identity theft charges. As part of the plea, he tearfully admitted at a prior hearing to filing false campaign finance reports, charging donors credit cards without authorization, and fraudulently receiving unemployment benefits, and other acts that began years before he ran for Congress. Pope Francis will be laid to rest today. Tens of thousands of mourners packed St. Peter's Square at the Vatican overnight for the funeral, which got underway in bright sunshine earlier this morning. Officials had estimated 200,000 people would attend, including dozens of world leaders and dignitaries, among them President Donald Trump and First Lady Melania Trump. Francis, the leader of the world's 1.4 billion Catholics, died Easter Monday from a stroke, weeks after battling back from respiratory ailment. He was 88. You can watch today's coverage live on usatoday.com. More couples are living separately. I spoke with USA Today wellness reporter Charles Trepani about so-called apartners. Charles, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
So what are so-called apartners, and how have we seen this conversation really take off as a trend on social media?
So partners aren't really anything new. It's basically this term that's going around TikTok to describe people who are dating in a relationship, sometimes married, but they live in different places. Sometimes they live just in different apartments, in different houses. Sometimes they live in different cities, different parts of the country. And the partners say that their relationship actually thrives better when they are not living with their significant others.
All right. So what are some examples, maybe some famous examples of relationships like this?
So partners aren't really anything new in Hollywood, at least. Gwyneth Paltrow and Brad Falchuk are both married, and they're an example of partners. They live in different residences. Sarah Paulson last year talked on a podcast about how the secret to her relationship with Holland Taylor is that they live in different places as well. And then Cheryl Lee Ralph from Abbott Elementary, she and her husband, Vincent Hughes, have lived in different states for a long time. She lives in Los Angeles and he lives in Philadelphia. So it's interesting because I think that whether or not a partner relationship works really depends on the people, the personalities, their attachment styles, and also what kind of fits best into their particular lifestyle.
Well, I'll admit my girlfriend and I have a version of this, largely based on sleep schedules. And I know there is still some stigma around these types of situations for some folks, but what do experts, Charles, say about whether this is healthy or not?
I think that the way most people experience like a partnerships in their own lives, whether they're aware of it or not, is through something called like a sleep divorce, where couples who live together may not necessarily sleep in the same bed or in the same room. And it's not unusual at all. And it mainly stems from partners who have different work schedules, different sleep schedules, partners with insomnia. One partner is a heavy sleeper, the other is a light sleeper. For whatever reason, it's just easier and healthier for them, physically healthier for them to just get more sleep, better sleep, higher quality sleep in different rooms, in different beds. Sleep experts say this is totally normal and totally fine. Lots of couples do it. It doesn't necessarily mean that a relationship is doomed or on the rocks or has trouble. And also, experts say that it is important to know that if two partners don't sleep in the same bed, but they would like to, but they're struggling because of their sleep schedules or because of like sleep health reasons to do that, there are ways to overcome it.
Does this tell us anything maybe more broadly about modern relationships or the moment we're in? As you mentioned, this is not a new trend necessarily, but the fact that folks are talking so openly about this, Charles, what does this tell you about maybe the moment that we're in?
I think it probably shows that people are thinking about relationships on much more case by case and individualistic terms. I think that in general, more people are kind of abandoning ideas about what a relationship ought to be, what it ought to look like, and these sort of molds that have been passed down from previous generations. And they're really asking themselves, well, what works for me and my partner as we are individuals? And I think that a partner's LAT, living apart together people, that's another term for a partner's, they're not defining their relationship based on like what other people think it should be. So I think that it's a continuation of that trend, this sort of authenticity above all else trend.
All right, I think a lot of listeners will get something out of this piece, Charles. Charles Trepani covers wellness for USA Today. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Is the US sliding into authoritarianism?
Mr. Trump is an authoritarian, and now he is back and things are proceeding very, very quickly. The firing of non-loyalists from the civil service, the attacks on the judiciary, the disappearance without due process of immigrants and U.S. citizens.
That was NYU history professor Ruth Ben-Ghiat, a scholar who has studied authoritarianism over the course of the last 100 years. According to her, we should all be very concerned right now. Hear her conversation with my colleague Dana Taylor tomorrow, beginning at 5 a.m. Eastern Time. And thanks for listening to The Excerpt. You can get the podcast wherever you get your audio, and if you're on a smart speaker, just ask for The Excerpt. I'm Taylor Wilson, and I'll be back Monday with more of The Excerpt from USA Today.